Tucker Carlson recently invited Dave Smith onto his podcast for a round two conversation, I guess you could say. He not long ago had Dave Smith on his podcast before the whole, Douglas Murray, Joe Rogan, and Dave Smith controversy literally blew up the internet. And well, Tucker Carlson decided to have Dave Smith back on the show in the event of after the Joe Rogan controversy. And they spend almost an hour and a half bashing the likes of Douglas Murray and saying that he's really lost his career because of the things that he said on Joe Rogan to Dave Smith. Now, there's a lot to unpack and a lot to cover with this particular conversation that he was having with the likes of Tucker Carlson. But the more I listen to Tucker Carlson today, the more it amazes me just how much he's losing the plot, just how much one can be actually bought by a particular organization or a particular group. And it seems like Tucker has sold out. He's sold what little credibility or reputation he had to someone else. And it seems like everything that he's saying at the moment is actually really nuts. Now, I don't know about you, but if you want to debate with somebody, why in the world would you need to go on so many other podcasts? I think it was 2 months ago that can't believe I'm already saying that. Maybe it was a month and a half ago or something along those lines when the debate happened with Joe Rogan and Douglas Murray and Dave Smith. Now, Dave Smith has still been going on podcast after podcast after podcast talking about how he won the debate. I don't know about you, but if you won the debate, you shouldn't be going on podcasts explaining to people that you won the debate. People should already know that you won the debate. The objective of a debate is like people will figure out who won and who didn't win. Now, obviously, I have pointed out a number of things regarding that whole debate. I've made many videos. You can go and check it out. But I think it is really bad character for Dave Smith to do what he's doing at the moment, especially bad-mouthing and going after Douglas Murray. And there's a number of times, like if you listen to the over 2 hour long conversation, because they don't just attack Douglas Murray, they also go after the likes of the woke right absurdity. Here are some of the timestamps for you. This is the things that they talk about. Dave Smith breaks down his debate with Douglas Murray. That's the first 10 minutes. And you'll notice that Dave Smith will always go, oh, Douglas Murray never debated me on a subject matter. But he'll never bring up the subject matter he's actually trying to refer to. He'll never bring up one of the topics that Douglas Murray seemingly missed. I don't know about you, but maybe I've missed it, but I never hear Dave Smith actually talk about any of the points that Douglas was referring to that Dave is also talking about, but somehow Dave won, even though Dave's not actually talking about any of the topics, any of the points that supposedly Douglas Murray missed. It's kind of really interesting to me. Like if you actually have something to debate Douglas on in terms of a certain point, elaborate. Say, Douglas couldn't debate me on this particular point, but he doesn't. It's just like a broad statement, a generalized statement. Oh, Douglas couldn't debate me on this. None of the things that we're talking about. There was a lot that you guys talked about in that almost 3 hour long conversation. What are you specifically referring to? The you haven't been argument, which is a very valid argument because you haven't been. Or there's many others like the Daryl Cooper controversy. And also they go after Douglas for not really knowing the name of Daryl Cooper. Like, honestly, just because you don't know somebody's name, but you know and you've heard their work, like it can happen, especially if you are in a debate. You can't entirely remember a person's name, but you're going to have to watch this. Watch this.
In the moment that I think
needs to arise in people not liking Jews.
I couldn't agree more. And I do think Douglas, though he's not an expert or a genius, is maybe actually turn it off. I had to stop watching. But it was most revealing of all is when he goes after Daryl Cooper, the historian, really one of the great historians in the United States, Daryl Cooper, and doesn't know his name.
Yeah.
But goes after him personally as like a Nazi or something. And let me just parenthetically, and I'll shut up after this, but Dale Cooper is one of the kindest, most reasonable, most fundamentally liberal people I know, anti-Nazi people I know, a guy who you could give your routing number to would never steal money.
Yeah.
A guy who, if he had absolute power, would kill nobody. Yeah. Like a truly decent Christian man, basically called him a monster and didn't even know his name. And so that suggested to me that he was like briefed by somebody before. So make sure you get in this Holocaust denier, which he's not. Daryl Cooper. Like, what is that?
Well, it's also, you know, if you're smearing people who, and Daryl wasn't the only one, but if you're smearing people whose like names you don't know and who you admit you've never listened to any of their work, maybe don't put that right in the middle of an appeal to expertise, you know, like maybe have that in a different section than in the section where you're going, you really have to know what you're talking about in order to have an opinion on these things. And so that didn't work out very well. Dude, Daryl is an amazing guy. He is brilliant. His work is phenomenal. I know him personally, and he's like genuinely a great person.
He's a humane man.
Yes. And it is something, it's a comment on our time and on our society that the guy who essentially, if you actually consume any of Daryl's work, as I have consumed a lot of it, basically Daryl's whole kind of his template, the way he operates is there's basically only like a couple rules. And like number one is he has to read everything that's available.
It's also great form, right? To have Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson bash the likes of Douglas Murray without Douglas Murray actually being there. All right, if you guys want to have another debate, another conversation, by all means, make it happen. Don't go bashing Douglas Murray for some of the things that he may have missed or may have not have said during a debate that happened over a month and a half ago. It's kind of absurd if you ask me. I think people have moved on already, but it seems like Dave Smith is still having a little bit of a temper tantrum about it, and then also bashing Douglas Murray for whatever reason, just saying that Douglas is wrong. And then now Tucker Carlson is doing it. And then this whole thing of when Tucker's like, he basically called him evil, a monster. He didn't even know his name. He was referring to Daryl Cooper's work. He didn't attack Daryl Cooper personally, but everyone, I've been seeing this a lot. If you claim to be on or if I look at what Tucker Carlson has said, and I think that he's actually on the woke right, which seems more so the case because Tucker is saying that Qatar is America's closest ally, which is honestly absurd. But anyway, and then also you've got the likes of Daryl Cooper, who is a pseudo-historian, and then Tucker's going, he's one of the best historians we've got. That's a problem to me, because the things that Daryl Cooper has said is actually false on many, many fronts, because we've got historical accurate records of what took place in Nazi Germany, just pointing that out, being very, very clear. But according to Tucker, Daryl is a very, very nice man. Okay, you can be a nice man. Fantastic. Doesn't mean that you're actually right about history. So there's like so many other elements. So that was just one of them, right? And then you've got the moment Douglas Murray destroyed his career. That's what got a lot of people up in arms, right? So Tucker saying to Dave that Douglas has really destroyed his career by doing the debate. It was embarrassing for Douglas. I don't think Douglas really cared too much. In fact, Douglas's character shined through after the debate. He didn't go after Dave Smith. He didn't go after Joe. He went after all the things that he said, and then he expanded upon them. He explained certain things that people may have missed, whereas Dave and Tucker are going after Douglas. It's kind of like a little bit hypocritical, if you ask me. So Douglas went after Daryl Cooper's, keep getting Dave Smith and Daryl can be confused. Anyway, Douglas went after Daryl Cooper's for historical arguments. He didn't attack Daryl Cooper, but he's saying that saying such things is actually dangerous. But you've got Tucker completely missing what Douglas said, which is what so many people have done. And yet somehow it makes it right for Tucker and Dave to lie about Douglas and then bash him for almost 2 hours. That doesn't seem right to me. It seems very, very hypocritical. You're attacking Douglas for supposedly going after Daryl Cooper, but yet you're going after Douglas Murray and you're lying about him. You can't even tell the truth. It can't even tell the facts right. And here's something that's very interesting. I want to show you this. So this is Tucker Carlson a little while ago, like when he started his show, Tucker Carlson Today. This is what he says about Douglas Murray.
We had a broad range of possibilities for the first person to talk to as we begin this new show, this new series. But really, in the end, there was only one choice. The one person we know who has crystal clarity on what's happening, not just in this country, but in the world, someone who's watched it and chronicled it for years now. His name is Douglas Murray. He's a Brit. He's the associate editor of The Spectator in London. He's the author of the fantastic book, The Madness of Crowds, Gender, Race, and Identity. And we are really pleased to have Douglas Murray join us here on the set. Douglas, thanks so much.
Like, the idea that he's an expert is absurd. He's a journalist like the rest of us who's been taken on PR tours in various countries by their governments trying to win his support. Got it. I've done that too. But he's hardly an expert on anything.
Well,
so
right.
Like, what?
Right. Well, also,
like, what? He's hardly an expert on anything. That's what he's saying now. And then he was saying when Douglas came out with The Madness of Crowds that he is, in fact, an expert. Interesting how time somehow changes, right? 2021. Douglas is the one person we know who has crystal clarity on what's happening in this country and the world. Verse 2025, Douglas is hardly an expert on anything. And then Tucker's saying that Douglas has ruined his career. I'll have you know that Douglas is actually sitting at number 1 on democracies and death cults. His book isn't a flop. He's actually quite more popular these days than he has been before. So you guys going on a podcast for almost 2 hours, bashing on Douglas and then also bashing on Ben Shapiro as well and Sam Harris, like that to me seems very, very poor form, poor character. You two are grown-ass men. You claim to have these opinions of the world. Fantastic. You can have these opinions of the world, or all credit to you. But yet your character, when it comes to someone that actually knows a little bit more than you, it just pisses you guys off enormously to know that there is someone out there that actually has the truth and has historical accuracy and is someone that is courageous enough to call it out. And you guys can't stand that. You can't stand the truth, so therefore you got to lie. You got to lie and bash that person and then say that, oh, he's ruined his career. Not just that, but he has had these attacks against Daryl Cooper, which aren't accurate. They weren't attacks on Daryl Cooper. There was attacks on Daryl Cooper's work. Big distinction, big difference. And just because he may not have remembered his name in the moment doesn't mean that he didn't know what he was talking about at all. It happens. You miss a person's name. So apart from that horrible conversation, here are some other topics they covered during the whole thing. Sam Harris's attacks on Dave Smith. Atheism doesn't exist. Ben Shapiro's identity politics. Neocons attacking Trump administration. How Con Inc. tried to buy Dave Smith. The woke right absurdity. The dehumanizing of Palestinians. Will the new media landscape survive? Individualism and your soul. The atrocities of war. Dave Smith's thoughts on Matt Walsh. They're going after Matt Walsh as well. How important it is that America avoids foreign wars. Stop asking questions, and Dave's spiritual awakening. So that's some of the other topics that they talk about. And then loads of people in the comments section I was noticing were going and saying that Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson both have major problems by they're two grown adults acting like 2-year-old little kids that have been beaten in a playground argument, and they're acting so pathetic. And for me, it seems like Tucker has lost all of his credibility that he ever had any. And Dave as well is just sinking further into like a dark spiral. Like, just stop. It's just, again, I'll point it out. It's just childish. It really, really is childish. So loads of other people in the comment section were saying just that. Tucker, don't trust the media. They're biased. Also, Tucker, who should I have on my show next? I don't know. Let's find just the last guy that went viral for bashing Israel and interview him. So Tucker's viewpoints and thought processes, I guess you could call them thought processes, against Israel, also against Churchill, against the UK, against World War II, because according to Tucker, Britain didn't win World War II because what's going on now. The line of thoughts that I have been seeing from Tucker recently and Dave, quite interesting, to say the least. Very, very interesting. And then the fact that Tucker is actually close to Trump, and Trump made a deal recently with the Saudis, multi-billion-dollar deal for arms. It's just, things are happening, man. Things are happening. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.